Boom. All right. Purple Room podcast today. We have Emil talking about snakes because
Hello.
snakes are cool.
They are. I do think they're cool.
I was under the impression snakes were lizards.
So that's a whole thing. Lizard is kind of a loose definition as to like it's kind of like scaled reptiles, sometimes with legs, sometimes not with legs.
Okay.
So not all lizards have legs, and most do. And some lizards have only 2 legs.
God, that's so adorable.
Yeah.
I just want to pinch their lizard cheeks
Yeah.
knowing that they only have 2 legs.
Yes, and some lizards, like the Gila monster in the United States, and the monitor lizards and Komodo dragons in Southeast Asia,
Fucking cool.
those lizards are more closely related to snakes than they are to other lizard species like geckos.
That's cool. So I guess, like, what would make a snake then? If lizards are more, if they're kind of lizards and some lizards are more related to snakes, like where's the line?
So the thing is, there kind of, sort of isn't one.
Okay.
But like in taxonomy, snakes are in the suborder Serpentes,
Yes.
which is in the order Squamata, which is all scaled reptiles and all lizards.
Would turtles be in scaled reptiles? Because
They
they've
are
got
not.
like scoots.
They are not in scaled
Okay.
reptiles. They are in a different order.
Fair.
Snakes fall into the suborder Serpentes, and lizards fall into other suborders, and some people say they fall into other suborders, and some people say they all fall into one. There's a whole debate surrounding that.
That's kind of fascinating.
And
I want like scientists like cage match about fights.
Yeah.
Of lizards.
And so snakes fall into the order Serpentes, and so snakes evolved from a group of legless lizards that started evolving to be able to burrow underground more.
Yes.
So they lost their legs, and they got more slender bodies, and then some snakes are still fossorial and live underground.
Fossorial, what does that mean?
Underground living.
Got it.
And then there are other snakes that live pretty much everywhere now. Like some snakes live up in the trees, some live in the ocean, some live in like forests, and some are just like live on land.
So talk to me about the taxonomy and like the genetic mutation. Because what you had said when we were prepping is that like it's not like a video game where there's a code that makes like this a snake and this not a snake. You said it's kind of like the difference between like a chimp and a human or a mushroom and a human.
Yeah, kind of. So all life on Earth shares a common ancestor.
Yes. Blue-green cyanobacteria.
Yes. And so that's all. So all scaled reptiles share a common ancestor. So that's all snakes and all lizards.
Yes.
So
Further down from the blue-green bacteria.
yes. And so what was I going to say? Snakes are a lizard in the way that a bird is a dinosaur.
Okay,
Because,
that makes sense to me.
like,
Technically, dinosaurs no longer exist. However, birds are descendants
Yeah.
of feathered dinosaurs. Therefore, they are
Yeah,
both dinosaurs
exactly.
and not dinosaurs.
And so taxonomy is weird because, like, in that way, humans are still blue-green cyanobacteria.
Yeah, it is,
Because
though.
and we're still fish, we're still reptiles, we're still amphibians.
Schrodinger's taxonomy.
Yes. And because we evolved from all of those things. So
Yeah, so that makes sense. So it makes sense to me that we would need that taxonomical, I think would be the word, classification, right? So how does the taxonomy itself work? Like, what you said that they're in an order, in a suborder, like what is the schema
Okay.
for taxonomy?
it's whiteboard time.
Yes.
So
That's my whiteboard song, I guess.
so first, this is the highest of them all.
Yep.
Or actually, not really.
You may want to like
This-
scoot to the side so the audience can see it. Yep.
This
So
is the highest of all of them.
so
Kind
what?
of.
Everything,
Yeah, everything
in the world that is alive.
is gonna be under life. So after that, we got domain.
Right. So that's like animal, vegetable.
That is like eukaryota and prokaryota.
Okay.
Domain. And then after that, we've got kingdom. So that's animals, plants, fungi, bacteria, archaea, and protists.
Yes. Okay.
Kingdom. And then after that, we have phylums.
So mammals, reptiles.
Or,
I
well,
don't know.
that's more like chordates, mollusks, arthropods.
Okay. All right. It's
Um,
been a long time since
yes.
undergrad bio.
So, phylum. And then after that, we've got class. And so class is things like mammals, reptiles, amphibians,
Okay.
cephalopods, gastropods, and so we've got class.
Ooh.
And then after that, we have order. And so order,
Yes.
within reptiles, there's 4 orders. That's Squamata, scaled reptiles, Testudinates, which is turtles and tortoises.
Okay.
Crocodilians, which is crocodiles and alligators and caimans. And then there's Rhynchocephalia. I could be pronouncing that wrong. But that order has only one reptile
What is it?
called the tuatara, which is native to New Zealand. And it is the last of its entire order, an order that was around during the dinosaur times.
That's so sad.
And it is unfortunately an endangered species.
I need a Purple Room podcast about the Tortuga,
Tuatara.
the Tuatara.
So we have order. And then after that, we have family. So within family, like, let's say within snakes, there's Colubridae,
Mm-hmm.
and which is a lot of like non-venomous snakes. That's the largest family of snakes. Then there's also vipers. Then there's elapids.
What are elapids?
Elapids are things like cobras and mambas and sea snakes.
Okay.
and whale snakes. So then there's family. And then after that, we have genus. And how do I put this? Genus is like Homo and Homo sapiens. That's the genus.
Okay.
And then after that, let me just write genus first.
Yeah.
After that, the last one, or kind of the last one, is species. And so
Because there are subspecies too.
Yes,
Nice.
we'll get to that in a bit.
Okay.
So
Keep me on
species is the sapiens in
Yep.
the name Homo sapiens. So Homo and sapiens, that's the scientific name of humans. So
It has been a long time since I have thought about taxonomy. And clearly, as our audience will know, that I was not super great at it.
So
Sorry, Professor Copen. I remember all undergrad bio.
so this is taxonomy.
So can you give me like an example of the like snakes in each one of these?
Sure, I can do that.
So life,
Um,
it is alive.
So let me just start. you. Or let me just do this in like another color.
And yeah, so we have orange and purple because it is the purple.
I'm just gonna not write the entire word eukaryote because that's a big word, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna write EU.
Yep.
Then there's animals, so I'm just gonna write any.
Yep.
Then phylum, we have chordata, so I'm just gonna write CHO.
And chordata, it means you have
A
vertebrae.
backbone.
Yep.
Or not always vertebrae. There are some chordates that don't have bones, like tunicates.
Cool.
Then class, we have reptile, so I'm just gonna write RAP. Then order, we have squamata, so I'm just gonna write SQU.
Yep.
And then family, there's many different kinds of families of snakes, so I'm just gonna write Colubridae, so I'm just gonna write COL.
Yep.
And then genus, let's do the milk snake, so Lamprepeltis.
No, I think this is a good visual illustration of how it's like broken down pyramid style into everything.
Lamprepeltis triangulum. That's the scientific name for the milk snake.
Nice.
Or for the eastern milk snake, which is my favorite snake species. And
Maybe we'll talk about the coolest snakes on each continent
So-
by the end.
a lot of the time for scientists, or pretty much all the time, this is just not enough.
Right.
You can't just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like,
Life is not
things.
that neat.
yes, it's not that neat. It's not like a video game, like we were saying before. So a lot of the time you gotta stick little bits in between, like infraorder and suborder and grand order, which
Oh,
are
man.
below order, and then there's superfamily, which is above family, and then there's subfamily, which is below family,
That makes sense.
and then there's species, and then below that, a lot of the time there's subspecies.
Right. Would that be like a mule is a cross between like a donkey and a horse?
Which are
But then-
two different species.
So it wouldn't make a subspecies. So what would make a subspecies?
Well, so it's kind of like evolution. Like,
Okay. That
Like
makes sense.
how like a dialect eventually can turn into another language. A subspecies can eventually evolve and become like a whole new species.
That I understand. So then you had said that, so you gave us a bunch of examples and you illustrated that, and it says here that like lizard is a loose definition in the way that snake is a loose definition.
Yeah. So I'm not kind of up to date on all my lizard orders. There's plenty
And you
of
do
them.
not have to be.
Um,
This is research.
I'll be with you in just a second.
Your call is important to us.
So, so in lizards, or in the order Squamata,
Yep.
which is right here,
Boom. And a reminder for the folks watching, Squamata is scaled reptiles.
yes, that is scaled reptiles. And within Squamata, there are at least 3 generally agreed upon suborders. So,
Serpentes, you said.
Serpentes is one of them, so that's snakes.
Yep.
And then there's Sauria, which is lizards.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna write SUR. And then there's Amphispanians, which is worm lizards.
Which would be the ones that are like legless lizards or 2-leg lizards?
Yes.
Got it. I'm getting it, guys.
So Amphispanians. So worm lizards are not really, from what I can tell, they're not really considered lizards in the way that like an iguana
Is a
or
lizard.
Komodo dragon is a lizard. So a lot of the time, those are like considered their own suborder
Into that.
into Squamata.
Got it. So, I guess that leads us to the questions, are snakes lizards? Because you talked about like legless lizards and then snakes and lizards having a common
Yes.
ancestor.
So legless lizards are like, well, there's, how do I put this? There are many different species of legless lizard, and not all of them are related to each other.
Okay.
Some legless lizards are more closely related to snakes than they are to other legless lizards.
In the way that some reptile, like Komodo dragons, are more closely related to snakes than other lizards of their
Like
sort.
geckos, yes. And so there's some types of legless lizards. There's legless skinks. There's legless geckos. There's and then there's glass lizards and slow worms.
Slow worms.
Slow worms are native to Europe and Western Asia, I think, and glass lizards are native to the Southeast United States. And
So lizard is a loose definition because they share a common ancestor in the same way that snake is a loose definition because they split somewhere down the line, right?
yes,
So like what is the evolution of that shared ancestor and how did we get the split?
so one day there was a legless lizard that decided, hey, I want to like be underground more often.
Mood.
And so they started having children that were more suited to life underground,
So like
such as
dimmer eyesight, ability to burrow.
yes, like having a slender body, and eventually, since they also lose the ability to close and open their eyes, so they got a transparent scale over their eye so their eyes are pretty much always closed because there's a transparent eyelid.
And that
over
is
them.
one of the defining characteristics of snakes, right?
Yes.
Boom.
Or I'm
Or
kind of
is it-
remembering this wrong. So it was a group of monitor lizards
Okay.
that started losing their legs, and so that's like Komodo dragons.
Yep.
And they sort of started to evolve to be underground more often.
So then we got underground, we have a species of, or several species, or however many, of lizards living underground. Then what happened? So we're at, lizards lived on land, lizards then evolved to live underground. They're looking vaguely more snake-like, but they're not yet snakes.
Yes. And so eventually those underground dwelling lizards with forked tongues and like not having the ability to close and open their eyes started having children that were more suited to life on land, and then they started having children that were more suited to life in the ocean, and some had children that were more suited to life in the trees. And
They were just like, we want to be everywhere, man.
so now snakes live pretty much all over the world except the polar regions and the deep ocean
And
for obvious reasons.
obvious reasons being that they are exotherms.
Yeah, and that they can't breathe underwater.
Oh, fair. So, like, what has prevented snakes from developing to live in polar regions if they're everywhere else?
Well, I mean, they are ectothermic, and there's not really much up there.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So give me like an example of like a snake, like a tree snake, an ocean snake, snakes on different continents, as a demonstration that they are everywhere. Since polar
So
regions.
in underground, which
Yes.
is where snakes originated from, there's blind and thread snakes, and these snakes are generally pretty small and have poor eyesight, and they pretty much all live underground. And then for arboreal snakes, There's things like boas and pythons.
Yep. The Jungle Book comes to mind.
Yes.
With the boa with the eyeballs for some reason, which
Yeah.
is things I haven't thought about in like 20 years.
And then in the ocean, there's sea snakes, like the yellow-bellied sea snake, the olive sea snake, and
I feel like that's what they called the sea snake on the playground to bully him. It was like the yellow-bellied sea snake.
and then on land, or just terrestrial snakes,
Yep.
Things like rat snakes, racers.
And they live everywhere. There's
Yeah.
there's desert snakes, there's jungle snakes, there's
Temperate forest snakes.
bear.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about snake venom, because when we were prepping, you had
Yes.
said like it's not for humans.
Yes, I want to.
So why would it evolve?
So, when people think snakes, they think, oh, it has a poisonous bite. It's
Which is like
they want to kill humans. They just want to murder humans. Lots of people just think that about snakes.
that's so sad. The snakes are squishy and cute. But also like poison versus venom. If you bite it and you die, it is poison. If it bites you and you die, it's venom. They're
Yes.
different things.
Yes, they're very much different things.
So they are wrong to think that snakes want to murder you.
Yes, the snakes are animals like everything else, with their goals being to eat and reproduce
Yes.
and have their species survive. That's pretty much the only thing snakes want to do.
Understandably so.
And the thing with venom is, like, let's say you find a snake in the woods and you step on it,
Yes.
and it gets startled by being stepped on and it bites you in self-defense.
Reasonable.
Like, you're not going to instantly crumble into a pile of dust from being bitten by the snake. Snake venom is just not strong enough to instantly kill a person.
Right, and out of all the things snakes are going to encounter, humans are probably going to be the largest, so venom is not going to work slowly.
Snake venom was designed so that it's saliva of
Yes.
a snake that was evolved to help the snake digest its food more properly.
I didn't know that.
And then eventually it started becoming stronger and stronger, to the point where if it ended up in the bloodstream of a smaller animal, then it could like stop their heart and kill them.
So 2 birds, 1 stone. It gets the food and then it digests the food.
Yeah.
Nice. Evolution done right. So
And it was not designed, venom was not designed for defense or to murder humans. Like, if you got bitten by the snake in the woods,
yes.
venom is not an adequate defense mechanism at all.
Right, like shooting lasers out of its eyes and turning me into a pile of
Like-
dust would probably be better defense than
Yeah.
biting me and causing me a
Like-
slow death.
It can bite you, and it can definitely hurt, and it can maybe kill you
Yep.
in like a half hour or an hour.
But I was not the intended thing. Something like
Yeah.
a fox or, I don't know, not an opossum, because opossums are, at least with rattlesnakes, immune to rattlesnake venom, and they're the reason we have rattlesnake anti-venom. But like a squirrel, right? Like,
Yeah, a
boom,
squirrel-
there you go.
A squirrel is pretty quickly going to lose motor functions and start dying if it gets bitten.
So I know a little bit about the fangs, but you had said there's a difference in what fangs do and where they're positioned and what they do for venom delivery.
So, there's many different kinds of venomous snakes, and not all snake venom is the same. So, in colubrids, there are, which is the largest family of snakes. That's things like rat snakes, corn snakes.
Which are not venomous.
Yeah, those are not venomous at all. And then there's some snakes, in the United States, there's the hognose snake, which has rear fangs at the back of its mouth, which are designed to catch toads and pop them. So when a toad is like under attack, what they'll do is they'll inflate themselves to make themselves harder to eat. but the fangs of that snake are designed to pop the toad so that it can't inflate.
That's awesome.
And
Like morbid, but awesome.
It also has so in the fangs at the back of its mouth inject a very primitive mild venom.
Yep.
That if you were to be bitten if you were to be bitten, then it would cause some like localized swelling, hurt like hell for a bit. And
I would go on with my day unfazed other than ouch.
Yeah, I mean you'd have like a very swollen hand.
So there's rear-facing fangs like that. Are like the other ones considered like front-facing?
Yes.
Or?
So in snakes like vipers, they have much stronger venom, and the fangs are at the front of their mouth. And not only that, but their fangs are hinged, so they fold back when the snake's mouth is the fangs fold back when the snake's mouth is closed, and
that's really cool.
And so the venom from vipers is mostly hemotoxic, which targets blood cells. So if you were to get bitten, your blood cells would just start exploding.
Oh!
And you would get necrosis in your arm, and depending on the strength of the venom and how much venom is in, like, the necrosis is going to be much stronger. Like, I've seen people who are bitten by copperheads, which is a type of viper native to the U.S. Some people who are bitten by them are completely fine and don't even have to go to the hospital. And then some people's arms turn completely black and swell up. And
so does that have more to do with the human's biology or individual biology, or like the snake's individual biology?
So kind of both. Like, not everyone reacts to snake venom the same.
Right.
Some people are even allergic to it, so they die much quicker than everyone else, or they get much more hurt.
Sicker. Like if I was bit by a hognose and I was allergic to it, it may do more than swell and hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's really cool. And I was like trying to prep a little for this, and I read that baby snakes are more dangerous than adult snakes.
That is bullshit.
Is that bullshit?
Completely
Okay.
false. Baby snakes are perfectly capable of controlling the venom that comes from them.
Okay.
They are less dangerous than adults because they just don't have as much venom to inject.
Okay, all right. I love why is
the whole thing with that whole thing. Baby snakes are more dangerous because they can't control the venom is complete bullshit.
How did that come about?
I don't know. I have no idea.
There. Like, this is the problem with the internet.
There's so many. I feel like maybe for prepping, maybe we should talk about snake myths because there's so many of them. There's so many.
Give me some
myths.
good snake myths.
New kid.
Hello, we're doing the Purple Room podcast though, so
Okay.
it's good to meet you. So, give me some snake myths. So we already have one.
We already have one, and some other ones like. There's some myths that are just so blatantly outlandish, like there's a type of snake in the U.S. called the smooth green snake.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most harmless snakes you could possibly imagine. It's just a little green vine thing.
It's the most on-the-nose name
and
too.
It's called it's actually called the rough green snake. My bad. And some people would believe that they would go to the top of hills, bite their tails, and then roll down the hill. And then attack humans by stabbing them with their tails. I don't know where that myth comes from at all.
That's hilarious to me. Like, I feel like that's one like that is the least believable. Like baby snakes, I could like be more dangerous. I was like on board with that. I'm like, I don't even like that's not even how spines work.
Yeah.
Let alone.
And there are some myths that are genuinely dangerous and can get you killed if you're not careful.
Like what?
You have kind of markers. Shit.
So let's see. Find me a marker, quick. Got it.
I hope this black marker works because are you familiar with a snake called the coral snake?
Yeah.
So it has a pattern, or the most common. The most well-known coral snake pattern looks like this.
Mm-hmm. So yellow, black, yellow, red, yellow, black,
Yes.
yellow, red.
And so that and then there's another snake called the milk snake or scarlet king snake.
So
that-
milk snake is the one you were talking about before, and he
Yes.
is not venomous.
Yes, and it has most of them have patterns that look like this.
Red, black, yellow, black, red.
Yes, and there's a common rhyme that's like said in the southern United States that goes, red touches black, friend of Jack, red touches yellow, kill a fellow.
Oh.
And here's why this rhyme is completely bullshit and you should never trust this rhyme.
We're getting like survival advice on the Purple Rum podcast today.
This rhyme kind of works, but only if you're in the southeasternmost part of the U.S., like Florida, Alabama, Georgia, those states.
Makes sense.
If you're in the western U.S., like Arizona, New Mexico, California, those states, then there's a species of snake called, I think it's called the long-nosed snake, that has a pattern that looks like the coral snake. And so a lot of people will see that snake and kill it thinking it's a coral snake.
Don't kill snakes, even if they are venomous.
Yeah. And not only that, but in South America, there's a species, the most venomous coral snake species in the Americas has a pattern that looks like this. This is the most that's the pattern that the aquatic coral snake has.
Red, black,
black,
yellow.
yellow, black, red. And if you'll notice, the rhyme says red touches black, friend of Jack.
Right. Red touches yellow, kill a fellow, but it's both.
Except red touches black on this variant of the coral snake.
Oh.
So people can see the snake
I'd like it's fine.
and pick it up and think, oh, it's safe, and then they get bitten and then they die.
Rhymes kill people is what we're learning today.
So don't rely on a nursery rhyme to save your life if you're in the Amazon rainforest.
I think that is good advice.
If you see a
overall.
snake and you don't know what it is, just don't pick it
Don't
up.
pick it up.
Don't be a dumbass.
That seems like generally like advice we should follow. Like, what if instead of making rhymes about it, we just didn't touch animals we don't know about?
Yeah. And if you don't, also, not all coral snakes have like these kinds of patterns at all.
Right.
There are coral snakes that live in Asia too. That are sometimes like blue and red. Some are brown and red. Some are like black and white. They have all kinds of different patterns. There's some of them are like orange and black. Not all coral snakes look the same at all.
I wonder if there are rhymes in those areas for that, or if it's just a weird U.S. thing.
Well, this is kind of a thing because the reason why the rhyme exists is because the milk snake evolved so to have a pattern to mimic the coral snake so that it would hopefully not get eaten.
So kind of like butterflies, where they're like evolve
Yes,
like eyes.
The
so-
viceroy.
Yes, looks like a monarch.
Yeah, so that's called Batesian mimicry.
I was gonna say it was aposematism, but that's a different thing.
Yeah. Aposematism is when you have bright colors to make yourself look venomous.
Yes,
Or
but you were not
poisonous or toxic.
venomous.
And Batesian mimicry is when you mimic a toxic animal and you're not toxic to hopefully to fool
Appear toxic.
predators into
Yes.
thinking
So let's
that
see.
you're toxic.
What do we have last on the list? So give me what you think is the coolest snake on each continent.
Okay, on each
Yeah.
continent, I don't know. Here in North America, I think the milk snake is the coolest. They're my favorite snake. I think they're beautiful. They're badass. They eat other snakes.
Yeah, I love a
They
good
even
cannibalistic
they're
animal.
immune to venomous snakes that are native to their areas. and so they eat snakes like coral snakes and copperheads.
That is badass.
And
And they're not
Yeah.
venomous themselves, you said.
they're not venomous.
But they eat venomous snakes. That's really cool.
And in the in South America, there's snakes like snail eaters and vine snakes that I think.
Who named
Look
these
really
snakes?
cool.
These are the most on the nose names. It's like
Yeah,
green viney boy. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, like what is the same thing? Okay.
yeah. I don't know. There's many different kinds of vine snakes in like.
So vine
Yeah.
snakes, South America.
100%.
What's cool about them?
There's also vine snakes in the U.S., but they're not as cool. But so I've seen like when I was in Costa Rica, I saw a snake that's not called the vine snake. It's called the blunt-headed tree snake, and when I saw it, I thought that is the coolest snake I had ever seen. And they have a pencil-thin body with a massive head and
The blunt-headed tree.
enormous eyes, so that they can see in the dark.
I'm gonna pack bond with it immediately if it's got big eyes.
And they sneak up on lizards that are sleeping and eat them.
Oh, that's mean, but I love it.
And yeah,
So
they're one of my favorite snakes.
milk snake, blunt-headed tree snake. So north, south.
And
Asia.
Asia, probably one of my favorite snakes is the red-tailed green rat snake. It's a very big snake. They live up in the trees and they snatch bats out of midair.
Yeah, that's cool.
And yeah, they're really, really like big snakes. They can be up to 8 feet long.
It's entirely too much snake.
They're bright green. They have a red tail, and you know how like a cobra will flatten its neck out
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
flat ways, to make itself look intimidating. This snake, the red-tailed green rat snake, will flatten itself vertically.
Oh, cool. So it would almost have like a fan, like a dino.
Yeah, or
That's cool.
Kind of. Yeah, and
Why would it do that? Like, what's the purpose of like vertical?
I don't know.
Just the
It
thing.
just looks intimidating and scary.
Badass. Into it.
Yeah.
So where are we going from Asia?
Maybe Africa. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know my African snakes that well, or my Australian or my European snakes that well. I just know my American and Asian snakes
Nice.
mostly.
So we can skip those if you want, and then we don't have polar regions to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, in Africa there's the boomslang and the twig snake, which are colubrid snakes, so related to things like corn snakes and milk snakes, except they're deadly venomous.
Ooh,
And
but I thought colubrids. No,
not all
that's-
colubrids are non-venomous. Some are.
Life is messy. Like,
Yeah.
man. So give us. We have all the coolest snakes according to Emil. Give us a final thought. Like, give us some snake advice, or like, give us something really cool to end on. It's a lot of pressure for you.
Like what do you mean?
I don't know. What can our viewers take out of this for them? Is it like don't follow nursery rhymes? Is it snakes don't want to kill you, so don't kill them? Is it that milk snakes are the coolest snake?
I don't know. Maybe just go outside.
Yeah. What do the kids say now? Touch
like,
grass.
Yeah. Well, please do that. Snakes are cool.
Go outside, find a snake, be nice to it, and learn about it.
Yeah. I don't know. Even if you're not that into snakes, do it anyway.
Yeah. This has been one of my things. Is like, I am so into my own special interest that like when someone else tells me about their special interest, I'm like, oh yes, I'm into this. Even if I wasn't before, I now know how
Yeah.
cool this is. So go outside, find a snake.
Absolutely.